Chere, was macht ihr? I hope everyone is gesund, stark und freilich, begashmish zu beruchen. I hope everyone is healthy, strong and happy, physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Pashas Vayeitzei. Shabbos is Tes Kislev, which is the Yom HaElula and the Yom HaStalkos, the birthday and the day of passing of the Mittel Rebbe, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe. And Sunday will Misham be Yud Kislev, which is the Mittel Rebbe, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe's Chag HaGeula. His day of redemption, it's a holiday. He was in prison and he was released from prison. So today we're going to discuss the thought of the week, the connection of the Parsha with the Yud Kislev, Tes Kislev, the Mittel Rebbe. But first, as usual, we'll start with a prayer, which this prayer is a very famous pasuk, which is directly related with the concept which we will speak about today, and it's directly related to the Chag HaGeula of the Mittel Rebbe, but also of the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe. And that's the pasuk in Kapitel Nun Hey, Poda b'sholem nafshi mikrovli ki berabim hoyu imodi. He redeemed my soul in peace from battles against me because of the many who were with me. So Chassidus explains, and this is also the simple meaning, how does the word mikrovli, why is the word mikrovli translated as battle? Because mikrov is from the word kirov, korev, close. In the olden days, battle was hand-to-hand combat in the battlefield with swords, etc. Up close and personal, down and dirty and bloody. So the pasuk tells us, David HaMelech says, Poda b'sholem nafshi, he was redeemed in peace, mikrovli, from these up close and personal battles. But Chassidus, as usual, shows the relevance, the immediate relevance to the person, because what could be more up close than the enemy, not from without, but from within? The number one subject, I would say, people think about and deal with is his own inner struggle, the struggle of life. And that's dealing with your inner nefesh ha'ba'amis and Yetzer Hara, the struggle between your Yetzer Hara and your Yetzer Tov, and nefesh halikis and your nefesh ha'ba'amis, your godly soul and your animal soul. And that's mikrov. He's not sitting in the seat next to you. He's in you. Like they're saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. So the inner side of you, that's your lazy self, the one that seeks easy streets, shortcuts, etc., that's the thing which we all face. Everyone knows who they really are deep down. If they have honesty, they know that they have struggles, they have limitations. And this is what the pasuk is telling us. Poda b'sholem nafshi mikrovli. The most important thing is how you overcome your inner struggles, how you change yourself, how you better yourself. That's the most difficult thing. And today we will talk about it, but first let's get to the Parsha. In this week's Parsha, there's another pasuk which says B'sholem, which is very connected to everything we're talking about. And that is the pasuk. This week's Parsha is talking about Yaakov is on the run. Vayeitzei Yaakov meber shova vayelech harana. He's on the run from his brother Esav. His mother Rivka told him to run because Esav wants to harm you. And Yitzchak told him, his father Yitzchak told him, go find a bride. So now he's on the run. And he's going to face the hardest years of his life, separated from his parents. The Yaakov Ishtam, that innocent, mild-mannered, scholar, academic, sensitive person, now is on the run. And he's going to his uncle, who was the greatest gangster of his time. He's going to a house of crime surrounded by con men, scam artists, etc., etc. So he had a vision, he saw the Eibishter, and he's now going, the pasuk says, Vayidar Yaakov neder leimer, imi elikim imodi, ushmanani b'derech hazeh asher anechi helech, v'nosen li lechem, Lechel Lilboish. Yaakov said, if Hashem will be with me and He will guard me on this way that I am going, and He will give me bread to eat and clothes to wear. V'shavti b'sholim el beis avi, and I will return in peace to my father's house. V'hoya Hashem lila likim, and Hashem will be a God to me. Then v'oeven azois hashesamti matzeva Yeh beis elikim, and v'choil asher titn li, aser asenu loch. Then this stone which I have set as a pillar shall become a house of Hashem, and whatever you will give me, I shall surely tithe it to you. So, I'm not getting into the commentaries over here that speak about whether this was a condition or not a condition. Obviously, most commentators say it's not a condition. Yaakov is not making a condition that if you do this for me, Hashem, then I will do that. But he's basically telling himself, this is what I'm going to set out to do. In other words, it was more like a mission statement, what he's going to do now. And it was very important for him to drill it into his head, this idea, before he's going into a hostile territory, before he's going into a place where godliness is not revealed, he has to remember what his mission is all about, to stay focused and to succeed. And having children, as will happen, as this is what it means. Rashi said, V'hoya Hashem lila likim, means that all his children will turn out to be good children, going in the ways of Hashem. And Chassidus talks about it, that this is all connected, and the Yerachayim mentioned it, and the Zohar and the Medrash, how really the story of Vayeitzei Yaakov mi Beersheva vayilech Harana is the story of every Yid. Number one, as he sent down, his soul comes down into this world. Number two, as this Yid goes into exile. In other words, the story of Yaakov going to Haran, to Lavan, is the story of every single Yid as he faces trials and tribulations, and he's uprooted from his natural home, and he's sent on a mission, and he's meant to be triumphant in the mission. So, Stam, I heard an interesting pshat. Number one, Vayidei Yaakov neder leimer. Why does it say leimer over here? Who's he talking to? Usually when it says Vayimer Hashem al Moshe leimer, he has to repeat it to someone else. What does it mean over here, leimer? So, number one, based on what we just said, leimer means Yaakov is telling himself these things the whole time. Beged Lilboish goes on mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are compared to garments. I'm talking according to the Chassidic interpretation. Lechem Lechel goes on Torah. Torah is compared to Mazen. I have to keep on focusing on doing Torah and doing mitzvahs. And V'shafti b'sholem al beis avi is referring to the sparks that are in the physical objects. Because V'shafti, they have to be returned. They're not in the realm of holiness. It's not like learning and davening. A Jew's Avodah is learning and davening. That's one sort of Avodah, one sort of service. But then there's an Avodah of being Mailen and Tzutzis. That's V'shafti b'sholem. And I heard a word that, what does it mean? Leimer im yeh lekim is like Leimer im yis Hashem. It's a Chassidish Taich. I once heard that one of the ways a person succeeds in Golus and on the Shlichus, if he's living with Hashem all the time, he always says im yis Hashem. He knows his success is not based on his own brains and talent, but whatever he looks at in life and whatever situation he's in, he's always saying, Im yis Hashem, be'ezes Hashem yizbarech. If Hashem will help me, meaning to say, if I keep myself connected, Im yis Hashem, this will happen. It's all about Hashem, living with Hashem the whole time. Now what I'm going to say is connected to the Sikha in Cheluk Chafei on Yud Kislev. We mentioned that it's the Chag HaGeula of the Mittel Rebbe Yud Kislev. Very interestingly, it says as follows. The Alter Rebbe also was imprisoned, and it says that when he said the pasuk Pod b'Shalom Nafshi, that we mentioned before, he was notified, the Koidim Sheschalti pasuk Shel Achav, he was notified that he'll be redeemed. Guess what? The same thing happened to the Mittel Rebbe. When he was saying Pod b'Shalom Nafshi, he was told that he's going to be redeemed. But the Rebbe explains, what's the difference between the fact that the Alter Rebbe was notified when he said Pod b'Shalom and when the Mittel Rebbe was notified when he said Pod b'Shalom? The difference is as follows. Why was the Alter Rebbe saying these words? It's Kapitel Nun Hey. The Alter Rebbe was notified on a Tuesday. He was redeemed on a Tuesday, Yom Shlishi. Why was he saying Kapitel Nun Hey on Yom Shlishi? Because there's the way the Tilm is divided according to the days of the week, and which is usually 30 days. There's the way the Tilm is divided in the days of the month, which is 30 days. There's the way the Tilm is divided according to the Chumash, Keneged Sefer Rishon, and there's the way the Tilm is divided according to the 7 days of the week. Now, when a person's going through a crisis, emergency, we say the Tillim as it's divided according to the days of the week. So if you're going through a crisis and it's a Monday, say the Tillim for Yom Sheni, for a Monday, not for the second day of the month. So now, since the Alter Rebbe was in a crisis, he was in jail, so therefore he was saying Tillim not only the way it was Yutes, that day he said the Tillim the way it was divided according to the month, but on top of that, he was also saying the Tillim as it was divided according to the days of the week. So he's saying the kapitlas that are connected to the way it's said according to the days of the week, which is Tuesday, and in such a case, Kapitel Nun Hey is said on a Tuesday. But the Mittel Rebbe, his saying of Pod B'Shalom was because it was the 10th of the month. And Nun Hey is part of the way the Tillim is set up according to the days of the month. It's set on the 10th day of a month. That means that the connection of Pod B'Shalom to the Mittel Rebbe's redemption is more direct. We don't have to say that the connection is because it was an emergency, because it was a crisis. Even though by the Mittel Rebbe it was also a crisis. But the fact is, the reason, the connection of a saying Pod B'Shalom on Yud Kislev was because then it was the 10th day of the month. That's why he said Yud, that's why he said the pasuk Pod B'Shalom. So that means it comes out that the concept of Pod B'Shalom is more powerfully, directly connected, this idea of peace, to the Mittel Rebbe than to the Alter Rebbe. So how do we understand it? And the answer is in the words B'Shalom, V'Shafti B'Shalom, and Pod B'Shalom. The word B'Shalom could be interpreted as Beis Shalom. There's two ways to peace. This is what the Hasidic discourses elaborate upon. We have a level of peace which is Milmayla Lamata, from above below, and there's another level of peace which is Milmata Lamayla, from below upward. And this is connected to the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, and the Mittel Rebbe. It's explained that the Alter Rebbe represents the concept of the concept, represents the idea of Chochmah. The Alter Rebbe was the attribute of Chochmah, the first of the 10 attributes of Hashem. The Alter Rebbe represents Chochmah. The Mittel Rebbe represents Bina. What's the difference in Chochmah, which is usually translated as wisdom, but we'll translate it as concept, and Bina, which is usually translated as understanding, but could also be translated as comprehension? What's the difference? So in the words of my Mashpia, Rabbi Tzibel used to say many times, Chochmah is wie der Sach nimmt der Mensch, und Bina is wie der Mensch nimmt der Sach. Chochmah means the way you're captured, you're elevated, you're surrounded, you're uplifted by the concept. And Bina is the way you bring down the concept. So Chochmah is wie der Sach nimmt der Mensch. What does it mean, Chochmah? We have the sequence. The sequence of every intellectual development goes Chochmah, Bina, Das. We're not going to discuss Das today. We're going to discuss Chochmah, Bina. What is this order of this sequence? How does it work? And the answer is as follows. First, you have to get rid of your baggage, and then you have to bring back your baggage. What does it mean? That means a person, you have to make yourself, you have a difficulty. You're studying something. You're in the darkness. How do we get rid of that darkness? How do we get out of the darkness? How am I going to see the light? How am I going to experience the revelation? And the answer is empty yourself. Kli reikon machzik. Make yourself a vehicle for truth. Make yourself a vehicle. To make yourself a vehicle, stop thinking about the questions. Stop thinking about what's bothering you. Just leave it by the door. All your difficulties, all your complexities, all your complications, leave at the door, and now try to just concentrate on what the pasuk is saying. Concentrate on what the problem, what the issue is. Attach yourself to the issue and empty yourself of your preconceived notions. Leave your preconceived notions, your preconceived perception at the door, and try to open yourself up. What is the truth? Like, in other words, you could say, try to be objective as possible. Make yourself objectable. Make yourself objective as possible. That's what comes before Chokhmah. You do that, then all of a sudden, you'll experience a ray of truth, a revelation, and you can't even describe it, you can't even explain it, but all of a sudden you're uplifted, you're filled with a feeling, this is it. That's when the light bulb goes off. That's the concept. That's Chokhmah. Then comes Bina. After you saw the truth, then you have to ask yourself the question, what were my questions? What were my difficulties? What was bothering me before? Go back to your baggage, check all those things that were bothering you before, your questions, your difficulties, your problems, and see how now all those questions you had before are now resolved. That's Bina. Now we understand the difference between Chokhmah and Bina and how it's a normal order. First you have Chokhmah, wie der Zach nimmt der Mensch. You were taken, enveloped, and uplifted by the truth, by the concept. And then comes Bina, wo der Mensch nimmt der Zach. He draws down the concept and he absorbs it, internalizes it. And then it resonates really from within. That's Bina. And this, the Rebbe explains, is what it means Beis Shalom. There's Beis Shalom, which means there's two ways of peace. What are the two ways? There's one peace that came because of, in a way of Mumayla Lamata, the truth is revealed. So now you feel good. You're at peace. But then there's a second way of peace that it wasn't because the truth overwhelmed you, but it's coming from you. And this the Rebbe explains in a brilliant explanation. What's the difference? We see the Jewish custom. It's amazing how the Rebbe explains everything. There's a deep significance. We say Shalom Aleichem. We tell a person Shalom Aleichem, peace be with you. And then the person answers Aleichem Shalom. So it's interesting. In English, imagine if I went to somebody and said peace unto you. And then he would say peace unto you, the other person. No. But by Yidden we say Shalom Aleichem, and the Yid answers Aleichem Shalom. We say Shalom Aleichem first, we say Shalom, and then Aleichem, and then the person answers Aleichem Shalom. So, why is it like that? So, humorously, you could say, number one, because, there's a famous joke. Why do Jews answer every question with a question? And the answer is, why not? That's one saying. Then there's another word that Rebbe said many times. I forgot the details, that there was a certain Godel, and he was called the Ibchem Estapenik. He always was able to say the opposite sort of logic. And the joke about him was that when he's going to come Lamaila, when his soul is going to ascend on high, when after he passes on, and he's going to stand there, before the judge, etc. So they're going to say, let's hear how you were so great in Torah. Say a pilpul. Say some Talmudic talk, some deep analytical discourse. So they say when he comes Lamaila, you know what he's going to say? He's going to say Adarab. He'll turn to Hashem and say on the opposite. You say something, you say something, and I'll knock it down, because that was his nature. But over here, the Rebbe says, what's the concept of Shalom Aleichem and Aleichem Shalom? Because first comes Shalom Aleichem. That's the first level of Shalom, a Shalom that comes from the person, from above, from without, from above. He is impressing, he is imposing his Shalom Aleichem onto you, like the idea of Chokhmah. But when the person responds, Aleichem Shalom, that means that the Shalom is not only coming from without, from above, but it's coming from within, from the person, Milmata Lamaila. It's a different level of Shalom. And that's how it works. When one person says Shalom Aleichem, that represents the Shalom that's coming from him, but then comes a Shalom which is coming from you, from within, a Bina sort of Shalom, as we explained before. So now we understand there's two ways of Shalom. And this is in general also concerning, let's go for a second talk about the general picture of Hashem and the world. In general, the Rambam said that the whole purpose of the Torah was Lasi Shalom Ba'olam, to make peace in the world. Hashem's name is also Shalom. What's the idea of Shalom? There's a tension. There's a tension between godliness on the one hand and the world on the other hand. What does peace mean? Peace means that we're going to resolve it. We're not going to see a tension and a dichotomy or a split or a division. It's going to be harmonious, a unity. But what's the ultimate unity? The ultimate unity is when it's Shalom Aleichem and Aleichem Shalom, when it's Beis Shalom. There's one Shalom, which is a Chachma sort of Shalom, where there's a great revelation, and that permeates everything, and takes away the tension and the divisiveness and separation. But then there's a deeper level of Shalom, which comes Mumata L'mayla, that the place itself agrees and goes along with it, because it's coming from within, they relate to it. And this also, the Rebbe says, is the way it's explained, the famous saying that the Baal Shem Tov said, Der Eibishter is Als, und Als is der Eibishter. Hashem is everything, and everything is Hashem. Which means there's one level of unification where we see how Hashem is everything. Sometimes we see a greater revelation, and that greater revelation permeates the earth. But then there's another level where we say, everything is Hashem. We look at the everything, and from the everything, we see Hashem. And this is really what's going to be the ultimate. When Mashiach comes, it says, V'nigla kvei davayid is going to be the revelation of Hashem, V'ro kol basar, and all the flesh will see, which means the flesh will become different. The flesh itself will cry out and reveal and demonstrate godliness. So now let's get back to the Alter Rebbe and the Mittel Rebbe. This week's parasha is Parashas Vayeitzei, and we say V'shavti b'sholem. We're emphasizing not only the first way of Shalom, which is the way of Chachma, but we're emphasizing B'Shalom. There's Beis Shalom. There's two levels of Shalom. And if we're talking about the week of Vayeitzei and the week of Tes Kislev, coming to Yud Kislev, we have to explain the superiority of the second way, the way where it's the way of Bina, it's the way of L'mata L'mayla, from below upward, it's in the way of Aleichem Shalom. And this is the resolution that we have to make on Tes Kislev and for Chag HaGeula Yud Kislev. Everyone knows that the Mittel Rebbe, after the Alter Rebbe's Estalkus, when the Alter Rebbe passed away, the Hasidim, Alter Rebbe was known, more famous than the Mittel Rebbe at his time. He was looked upon as the powerhouse, and he was the one who engaged in many public debates with many of the opposition and won them over, and he was known as the great Gaon in Nigla Torah. He wrote a Shulchan Aruch. So when the Alter Rebbe passed on, people thought, who knows what's going to happen now? And the Mittel Rebbe, not only didn't it weaken the doctrine, the Torah's Chassidus Chabad, but it became much more powerful, much more greater, much more expanded. And that's why, as we know, that's also similar to the difference between Chochmah and Bina. Chochmah is just a dot, a seed, a spark. Bina represents expansion and broadening. And it's compared to Rechavis Hanar, like a river. We have a wellspring that's just like drops, tippin', and then we have the Nahar, the river, which is the great expansion. And this is what the Mittel Rebbe did. Which, by the way, I didn't mention this before. That's also the explanation, talking about what we said before. If it's a Shalom Aleichem or Aleichem Shalom, whether you're uplifted by the concept or absorbing it, internalizing, that's the difference between Torah Oyer. The Sefer of the Alter Rebbe is called Torah Oyer. The Sefer that he wrote, it's called Torah Oyer, because Oyer represents Chachma, and the Sefer of the Mittel Rebbe is called Torah's Chaim. And it's explained, Oyer, light. When it goes into a room, it doesn't make the room really a glow-in-the-dark room. The light is only there because there's an outside source, light, comes into a room and illuminates the room. But the room really didn't change. It's the light coming from an outside source. What's Torah's Chaim? When a person has life in a body, you don't feel like you have an outside battery, an outside source giving you life. The whole idea of life, Chayes, in the Pshat is, as nimmt durch den Menschen im Ganzen, Du wirst lebendig. You are alive. Your body becomes alive. Not like there's something else in there giving you life, but the body itself becomes alive through the neshama. So there's two ways something can operate. There's one way where a light comes in and it doesn't really permeate and become absorbed where it's going. And then there's another way where we talk about life that comes from the soul. When it goes into the body, it becomes one totally with the body. There's no greater unification of two things than the soul and the body. That's how much they become united. The body becomes alive. And that's the way Bina works. In contrast to Chachma. Chachma, the Alter Rebbe's method, is more oil. It was a great light. It was a new truth. And it permeated intellect. It's a part of intellect. And that's the way the beginning of every intellectual process starts. But then comes Teiras Chaim, Bina. It really, really permeates. It really, really resonates. So, and this is going back to the history of after the Alter Rebbe passed away, the Mitzvah came along and he made certain customs. He made that every chassid who comes to Lubavitch and spends time and hears a Hasidic discourse has to now review this discourse wherever he's going to travel, from Lubavitch back to his home, wherever he stopped in every town and every village, he would have to repeat the Hasidic discourses. So that means Bina. He had to really absorb it if he's able to repeat it. He had to understand it better. So we see that the Mittel Rebbe, also his discourses, a mimer, a discourse that the Alter Rebbe said that could be 2 pages, the Mittel Rebbe, it could turn into 40 pages. So this is the resolution we have to make. We have to learn Chassidus in a way not only of Chachma, but in a way of Bina. Bring it down, bring examples, analyze it, translate it in the way that your Nefesh HaBahamis understands it. And we all know the most famous wish of the Mittel Rebbe that he said, when two young men encounter each other in the street, they should be talking about Yichud Ilah and Yichud Tata, 2 levels of unification of godliness in the world. So this is such a great standard that we have to make this resolution. We should learn more Chassidus, dive into it more. It should become more part of our lives. Our conversation should become elevated and of a higher standard. So the Rebbe should help that through our avodah of hafotzas hamayonis chutza, emos haikosi marli shafutza meinesecha chutza. So our learning chassidus will bring the day now, amen, of the gula mitzvah shleima taken from miyad mamish. The Mittel Rebbe, his chus of the Baal Yem Hailedes, or Baal Yem Hailula, or Baal Agula, should be Pel Yeshua's Bekerev Oretz, of every single person who needs to be helped in whatever area in his life that needs to be helped, should be helped, taken from Yad Mamish, Begula Amitis Vashleima.